President for 3 months where I got Mad Max style.
Just braided fire.
This is, I think this is the one that I found that had nothing. I mean, this is Business Insider, right? Yeah. This is not going to help your business. I'm just letting you know. Like, you will never get more money knowing this. But. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. A pie chart. Stop going up. Is that how business works? It goes to the moon. I just.
Let me put you in perspective.
Oh, Alex. Yeah, you know it's a Cusio film when it's got that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this. MLC. MLC is a lot of fun. All right. So, starting with this section and the next chapter, if you've started reading ahead to chapter 13, you might have noticed the flavor of what we're covering is a lot different. And so I just have to kind of talk about this just because people are kind of blindsided by this material. We're doing something a little bit different, right? We're introspecting on the theory itself at this point because we've done a lot of tree building, we've done a lot of XPs, and we kind of know it's become routine so far. We just say, hey, here's a new sentence, what about this? And then, oh, it's a QP, and it goes here, and it does this arrow, right? Right. We've done that a lot, and you guys know how to do that. And so you could keep doing that, which is fun, but we're trying to expose you to the other side of syntax, or a other side of syntax. There's a lot of them, where you look into the theory itself and say, hey, can things be streamlined? Can things be fixed even more? So that was kind of like the chapter on X-bar theory. It was just like, we have all these NP, DP, adjective P, and stuff like that. Can we make it all one thing? And you did. You made it XP. You made them all phrases. So we're doing something similar here with chapter 13 and the MLC, which is a preview of the stuff that's coming up. So it's a lot of text, but this stuff is still important. It's not tree drawing, but I still want you to know all of this. So were these reviewed by Alec? I feel like these are pretty, yeah, so maybe I don't have to talk about it too much. But this is something that Chomsky talked about several decades ago in the book Aspects of the Theory of Syntax, and he said that there are 3 different levels of linguistic theory that we have to judge our theories against. One is that you can just list out everything you hear. That's number 1. You can just list out everything you hear and say, here, this is English. Super unsatisfying, right? But that's actually, a level that you can say on the scale of things. You could say, okay, well, that fits observational adequacy. You've told us what you've seen. But it doesn't make any predictions. It doesn't say, you've never heard the sentence, colorless green hippopotamuses sleep furiously. But you all understand what that means. And so those kinds of theories are not really that good. Or they're not sufficient. And the step number 2 there, descriptive adequacy, is what we're kind of doing here. We're now specifying kind of rules and general principles to generate possible sentences, and crucially also explain the impossible sentences, right? So this is where the stars start appearing in syntactic theory, and that's the stuff that we're really interested in. Stars are really fun. Why do we know that this is bad? Okay, because you're arguing from negative evidence there at that point. And step 2 again, which is step 3, of course, is the one that we really want to aim for, which is explanatory adequacy. At this point, we've described a lot of the sentences. But we want to provide a principal explanation of why. Are there more general principles behind all of these islands that can explain them all in a principled fashion? So the MLC is one type of explanation. Just to kind of illustrate that in a really, I hope this isn't too gauche for you guys, but all we've done is kind of observe the different birds of the world, right? So we've observed the different birds, and I've just said, hey, we have the 4 different types of birds in the world. We have a subject bird, we have a WH bird, and a coordinate structure bird, right? Right? I mean, that's what we just said, and you should be kind of unsatisfied with that, because you might want to ask, okay, well, what's a bird? What is a bird actually? And given these pictures, just because I've given you pictures of what the islands are, you might be tempted to say things, these are not wrong, but you might be able to say, well, birds have beaks, they have wings, they have 2 wings, and they have a beak without teeth. Those are definitions of birds and stuff like that. And so, that's something that unites all these birds together, sure. One theory might be, which is easily proven wrong, but this is an illustration, right, is that birds can fly. All birds can fly. That might be something that you draw. Already you're shaking your head, right? So somebody might look at just the WH bird, the eagle, and say, okay, all birds can fly. And we found some other birds that don't. Okay, the subject bird, penguin, and the ostrich don't, right? And so what we want to do then at that point, not just throw that out. We don't want to just throw that out. That's what stars are. So stars are those birds that don't fly, right? We don't want to just throw that out and say, well, we don't need to worry about the birds that don't fly because they're not really birds, right? We're interested in explaining why those aren't birds, why they are birds but they're star, right? So there's actually research on this, trying to kind of give you the flavor of what we're doing here, is that there are papers that explain why that title says why penguins can't fly, right? So, right, yeah. So flightlessness in penguins, why can't they fly? And they wrote a paper and they explained why. Okay, we don't need to know that, but hopefully you see kind of what we're doing here. We're trying to zoom out a little bit and ask why these stars really show up. So we can do this for language too, with islands as our birds. Why can't these sentences fly? Very poetic, right? Oh, man. Okay, so here we go, right? So you look for general patterns across the islands, and what one of the observations made was that locality is a theme in our operations. Locality is closeness, right? Things have to be close in general, or they want to be close. Some concrete examples of this are that DPs move in order to get close for case. They get local to case assigners. They're in that complement position for accusative. They're in that specifier position for nominative. Yeah, right? And so things get close to each other. WH phrases move to get close to plus WH in order to check that feature. Every movement is always closer to a feature. And this kind of answers a question about rightward movement that we might have asked before. Plus WH. Every movement is toward, it's trying to get closer to WH feature, right? This movement, even though it doesn't ultimately end in a plus WH, it's closer to the plus WH. And so we wouldn't see like a movement way out here and then way over to this side. We just don't see something like that, even if you do have an adjunct over there. All right, yeah, so locality is a theme. Another theme that we have is cyclicity. So here was an example of cyclicity. This is a new term that we're using. The idea that movements happen in intermediate steps. Intermediate and successive steps. So WH words, they climb up the CP ladder in procedure. They go up to this one first, and then they go up to this one. They do not skip this, which is the MLC in a nutshell. They do not skip this and then go back. They always go to each of these positions in turn. So this sentence that we've done before, you already know how this sentence is structured and how the movements work. Gordon is likely to burn the quiche. Gordon is space generated all the way to the right, and then it moves up to spec TP, and then ultimately spec of matrix CP, TP. So Gordon is likely for case. There's a minor typo at that book right there. It shouldn't have troubled you, but affix hopping is not a mechanism that we explore in this class, so that one should just be struck. It's an older version of the text, so we don't worry about affix hopping. Don't worry about it. All right. So as hinted here in this discussion, the MLC basically says move to the closest potential landing site. This MLC is just like the theta criterion, just like binding conditions, any of the other constraints on the grammar, and therefore it's a source of ungrammaticality. My favorite thing ever, right? It's a source of ungrammaticality for certain islands, certain sentences. It can cause stars for these three different, seemingly unrelated things. We didn't talk about head movement in islands at all, right? Right. So, but MLC kind of captures that. It also captures problems with raising verbs. So, so this is a principle that I think we would like to adopt because it explains a lot. So, let's unpack this a little bit, though. What does it mean to be a closest potential landing site? So this is a review slide of when we were talking about the WH island constraints, where these two movements are okay. The green and the blue ones, those are two sentences. The green and the blue ones are okay. Just to remind you of what we're doing here is where we have the two blue arrows. That movement I had just said before. I said we just have to stop in the CP. I'm not going to tell you why, but we just have to stop there. Okay. Now we have an explanation for that, in case you were, sleepless because of that. So there's no other reason. Actually, can you justify that for yourself? Think about this for a minute. There's no other reason that things have to move to spec CP in that embedded clause with the blue arrows, right? Just reconfirm it in your mind. Is there any case reason? Spec CP. What is the features on C there?
Your plus or minus. Oh, for the
that one, right?
Movement for the blue one for the WH.
In the blue with the red circle, yeah.
So that would be like minus WH.
Yeah, that would be minus WH. There's no reason for WH to move there. No one benefits from that, right? And there's no case there. Yeah, and so there's no reason actually why how has to move there. But we're going to say that it's part of the MLC now, and that predicts a star in a certain sentence. That predicts a star in a certain sentence, and that sentence is exactly the same one that we've predicted a star for by saying that this is a WH island constraint. So you remember this sentence. Again, this is something we've done before. You move you have two WH words, what and how. We're on the bottom sentence now. What and how. You move this one, and then this becomes a WH island because there's something in spec CP. And then it becomes ungrammatical because you are trying to extract this second WH phrase. Now, notice that the mode of explaining where the star comes from is different. What did we say before? We said if there's something in spec CP, if there's something in here, this is just an island. We just said it. There's an island here. There's an island if this was a subject DP. There's an island here in this coordinate structure. Don't move things out of it, okay? That's just stipulation. But now we've said something more interesting where there's something here, and because of the MLC, we need to move something else into this position, but it's blocked. Okay? This Y wants to move to this position, but it's blocked. So the blue arrow wants to happen, but it's blocked. Therefore, the sentence has a star. Okay, therefore, the MLC is in action, right? Okay, good. And therefore, maybe WH islands don't exist because we don't have to specify. We don't have to list penguin as a bird as a WH island bird, we can just say that this is an artifact. This is a consequence of adopting the MLC, in fact. So that illustrates this, hopefully, that skipping that movement, so the long blue arrow here, skipping that movement and just forcing the WH word to go to the very furthest position, that's skipping that potential landing site. And that actually is what the island is. It's not anything special about the WH island. In fact, WH islands don't exist now, because we're just saying that they're MLC violations. So, do you see? Yeah. So, let me clarify before, because I think that could be confusing. I will still ask you to identify what these islands are, and if given the list of things, I will give you the list of the 4 islands, and one of them will be WH island. And if it is that configuration, then you will answer that. So that's not what I mean by it doesn't exist. Okay, we're not going to actually get rid of it, and hopefully that will be clear. I never hope to deceive you on that. But let's explain. Okay, well, you just kind of replaced one explanation with another, Brent. Like you just said, okay, well, WH island, you can call what's the expression? Like you just called it something else. Yeah, you just called it something else. You said, okay, well, we don't have WH island anymore, but you had to adopt something else. But the thing is that the MLC actually gets us something else. It gets us explanations in other domains. But before we get to that, practice this, actually. So this is hopefully a little sketch exercise for you. So we did number 1, basically, this task number 1. When did you say what Jordan painted? I want you to kind of walk through the reasoning yourself and show why number 2, the task in number 2 also follows from the MLC. So try to put those WH words in their trace positions, okay, for each of these, and then move them in according to the task, and go through the reasoning of why this is still violated. And you don't have to draw the trees, just draw the brackets. It's easier.
Yeah, I was thinking about this if you have 2 CPs and they both call for plus WH.
Yeah.
I know earlier when we first mentioned it, you said, okay, well, as soon as you see a plus WH, you have to go find the nearest WH word and move that. So I understand that they're both within the same bracket and that maybe has something to play with it. But then if you saw the first WH, which is where their 1 is, then you would go down and technically the first one would be the what by what's co-indexed.
Mm-hmm.
So then what would skip up and go to it, and then you go to the next WH and then you get the next one. Or because you have 2 WHs, it can't do that hoppy motion because it would stay as soon as it gets to an area that says plus WH. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Let me hear the first part of the or. So let's walk through it actually. So you were thinking that you're going to put them down here. Painted. What? All right. What are you thinking?
So both of those C heads have plus WH, right? Because they want to move, right?
Yeah.
So let's have that. And so when we have our, let's say we have our D structure, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to S structure. We see that first WH and we go, aha! The plus WH feature says that we have to go find the first WH word and move it up. So we have that, yeah. We see that feature, so we go find the first WH word, which is what?
Yeah.
And then we want to move it up, right?
Yeah.
So we want to move it up to that position. So given that definition, of course the definition might have been changed, that might have been a paraphrase version, I'm not sure, then wouldn't what skip the first WH and go up because it's drawn to that first one per that description, right?
Okay, so looking down the tree, you would say, process this one first, and I'm going to look for a WH phrase. And then it's going to say, hey, I found a WH phrase. Yeah. And then this guy is going to come toward me.
Yeah. And it's not going to skip the first one, it would still have to do the hop. But that's the thing is what you mentioned, as soon as it does that first hop, it's like, oh, here's a WH.
It's stuck, yeah.
But I think it's just because earlier we never talked about having 2 W plus WH phrases, and you just mentioned if you see a plus WH, it wants to find the nearest one and bring it towards it.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know if we can say about... I said those words?
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes like a heat seeker, it finds the first WH and brings it up. And if you see one, so if that second thing had minus WH, then of course you'd skip it because it's not looking for a WH. But if you have 2 plus WHs, then, right?
Yeah.
They both want to seek something out.
Yeah, okay, this is related to, I think what's gonna answer your questions that I can't get into now. Yeah, so this is, it's gonna do, let's walk that, let's humor this. So this is gonna look down and see the first WH phrase, if we're processing from the left, right?
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, that's an open question, what happens? Okay, so then this guy is gonna come, and the movement operation is going to take this guy and move it leftward,
Yeah.
okay? But you're right in that the MLC is still a global constraint in saying, hey, move to the closest possible landing site, which is this.
Yeah, and so it would move there, but then, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, the only way that would, I know that the sentence is
Yes.
incorrect what I'm trying to make, but
Yeah.
if we wanted to say how would it be correct, it goes, okay, I'm here, but I'm being drawn to the first WH, so maybe I leave a trace and move, and then the next one moves up, and the trace is there, but the when is in its place.
Yeah, and in fact, okay, so that might be, yeah, so that's not the target sentence, but
Yeah,
you're,
it's
you're
like, what
yeah.
did you say when
What
Jordan
did you say
painted?
when Jordan painted? Exactly.
Yeah.
So this follows the same explanation. So now we're actually discussing number 2, but switched. We're discussing number 2, but a little bit switched. In that you're saying, okay, maybe this is what's happening. Maybe we're going to leave a trace there. Sure. Okay, and then do this thing. What?
And it's filled, and then we go to the next plus WH. Okay, where's the next one? Oh, it's when, and then moves there.
But if you have a trace
But do you
there,
even need to? Also that.
Yeah.
if you
What do
have
you
a trace there, you can't really move something in there.
Yeah, we've never seen, and we don't have a motivation for moving something to where there has been something.
Yeah.
So we never see moving something to where there is a trace, and then becoming, yeah, like when, and then a trace. What is this even? What are you doing there? Yeah, we've just never seen something like that. Not that there's not reason for it, if we can find that something. But that is basically the explanation for number 2 here, in that if you want to move when first, if you want to move, now we're back to the sentence here and also number 2. If you want to move when first and get it to the very front, you have to move it, and then the MLC demands that you move it to the first potential landing site. And so this WH is checked, okay? But we want it to end up in the very front, in the very top. So just keep moving it. We'll just say that, like say you can keep moving. This is a weird movement, but sure. Because remember when we said you have nominative case, you stop. Let's keep moving and move this thing here. The problem is that you're going to have to move the what now into this place that has a trace. And that's blocked, yeah. That's not something that we ever see. And that's where the MLC plays out here. That what is going to have to try to move there, but there's already something there in that position. So
If we ignore the traces just for a moment,
Okay.
if let's say we had the sentence where what is the first thing,
you
and
can
then
do
when
that
is
by the way. There are people say traces don't exist. Like
Yeah.
that's a sure.
But what I'm saying is like if you have the sentence shown above where what is the first trace marker with the I and then when is the second one, could when ever actually get to the front? Because like you said, wouldn't the first WH call for the first WH word, which would be what? It would always be what first, not when. Because when is traced with the K.
Yeah,
I don't know if that matters.
this is
Like, you
called-
could just
no.
switch them, but
No, it does, yeah, and you should. This is thinking syntactically. This is called superiority, actually. This is the term of superiority. No is the answer. No.
no, that
So you can never skip. You have to bring up WH words in that order.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if we ignore tracers, it would always be what did you say when Jordan painted? Because what is the first
Yeah.
WH to appear?
And that's just like locality and movement, right? So what has to go to the most local thing because it's the closest one? And maybe you want to get onto more. The slides, but-
Sorry, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Sorry,
I
that
just
was
see
rude.
that.
Yeah.
That, locality says no. You just can't skip over things that are open.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a problem of, well, how do you justify movement then? Because
But if you have a feature within a feature, then does the feature that inside go first?
right,
So that's the next question, because technically the plus WH is inside a plus WH.
exactly.
So then even though we see the one on the left first, maybe the one in the middle goes first, regardless. It's like, math, where you've got like the multiplication
The order
from
of
the brackets,
operations.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Order of operations dictates that if you've got two of the same features, but one is inside the other one, the one inside goes first. or something.
Right. And who knows? I mean, so it's fun to think about, but in order to decide between those two, see, it's fun to think about that.
You
In
have to
order to
test
decide
them.
between those two, you have to test
Yeah.
and tell me, okay, so what effect does that have on the grammar? So, but this is the typical example of superiority, I think, that in this case, we only have, let's just focus on this embedded one, this one right here. You can actually ask,
Who gets that kissed or
is it okay?
No. I don't like that. Who you thought kissed what? Who did you
Who did you think?
think?
Actually, I don't think I have to embed at all. There, yeah, I don't think I have to embed to show this. So, we have a sentence where you can ask both the subject and the object, right? You can ask both the subject and the object, and let's just assume for a second that you do need to move something to spec CP to check this WH feature. This is illustrated superiority now. This is something outside. What can you do?
Only movement.
Hold the move.
If you're given this D structure, that's the only thing. You can't create a sentence with what, who, kiss.
We can even put like a will to make it super clear, right? Like will kiss. Who will kiss what, right? Let's just say that you had to do this. There's arguments that you don't. But who will kiss what? And then you could say, okay, well maybe T to C movement too because it's plus Q. Sure. Who will kiss what? Who will kiss what? Okay, that's fine. What actually is stopping this from looking past this WH? So you're like, I'm not just saying look for the closest one. Here's the evidence. You have to look for the closest one because if you didn't, what would it say? So blind to this one and you say, hey, plus WH, give me that one.
What will kiss? Right, eventually, because
What will
the
kiss?
TC.
Yeah. Well,
Or what is accusative?
Yeah. So, there's something else going on here. Yeah. This is the general idea and the general thrust of the questions that you want to ask related to superiority, definitely. But that's a great question. The timing, embedded.
Because maybe there's features on who and what.
You can also turn English into OVS language.
Yeah, you could. If there were certain features on each of the words that said, I take a plus
Yeah.
WH who has this other specific thing
Right.
that discludes everything else that's not that. So then we're talking about even more features on each of the
Yeah,
WH.
which by itself is not a problem, but you have to give a reason for it, other than just okay. You have to give a reason for it. Give me a star sentence because of your feature system,
Right.
Okay. Long excursus, but yeah, those questions are fascinating, and that is what research has done about this sort of stuff. So as long as everyone understands the MLC violation in these sentences, then that's going to be good, and the explanation that goes on behind it. And crucially, importantly, so back to this one real quick, which one is not explained, because we said that these are examples. This is an example of a WH island. This is an example of a WH island problem. But in fact, this one, right, this one potentially derives the correct word order where you move when in these two steps, when, and then you put what here, ignoring the trace for a second. This one actually does work, and it doesn't invoke WH islands at all. Did it?
No.
Test this for yourself. Because what is a WH island? A WH island is a CP that has something in its specifier. Maybe that's what the trace is. Okay, but sorry, a WH island is something that has WH word in the specifier presently. And at this moment it didn't. So this is in fact something extra that the MLC gets us, all right? So we should start being able to see the utility of this thing. We're not just changing the names of stuff. Okay. So just as a caution, though, in trees from now on, this is something that I want you to do in trees. It does add a number of vacuous movements, quote, in that, for example, if you're going to extract this WH phrase from this embedded clause, you're going to go through all those steps. And test for yourself. This is a useful exercise to test for yourself if you can explain each one of those. Why? So who did you say slapped the chicken? Base generated to the left of slapped in the spec of voice phrase.
Move to TP to get tense, or to get done, not tense, case, sorry.
Case, yeah.
Case, yeah. and then it has to move to the CPs until it gets to the one that gives you the plus WH.
There you go. Yeah, and the embedded CP is minus WH.
Yeah.
Who did you say slapped the chicken? Yes. This is called successive-cyclic movement, which is the greatest phrase ever. You just have to get used to saying that. Successive-cyclic movement is, again, the idea that things move in little hops. And this is pretty crucial to our model. I'm real big on this, right? Let's zoom out and look for evidence that this thing actually exists. Given our theory, we could say whatever we want, but let's look at the real world and see if we have evidence behind this sort of thing. And we do. We have little pieces of evidence that you can gather elsewhere, such as child speech. What do you think Cookie Monster likes to eat is the adult sentence. What do you think Cookie Monster likes to eat? Extracting that WH word. And there's a lot of documented evidence. Thornton and Crane are both very prominent psycholinguists who work with children. What do you think what Cookie Monster likes to eat is a feasible child sentence that you would expect to hear and documented in their corpus. So what do you think what Cookie Monster likes to eat? And look, where does the what correspond to? The second what? Spec of CP, where we would expect it to pop up because of only MLC. So this thing happens there. What do you think what Cookie Monster likes to eat? Other languages, they actually say Standard German here, which was surprising to me. But Standard German, they claim, has this, where you have the who inside the middle example of who, wer, appear where we would expect it because of MLC. That's the spec of CP clause. Who do you think who home goes?
Yeah, that's fine. I think the last sentence we had was a little bit different because it wasn't talking about who. It was like double who what.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. It was
Yeah.
like wer glaubt du was wer not. So it was like having a double WH word. I think that was because that was the Swiss German that said like who do you think what.
Yeah, the
who,
Bavarian German they said in
Bavarian,
relative clauses the cat who that.
Yeah, that's what it was. See, that's what the standard German didn't have. But this is fine, and you can say that wer glaubt du wer not.
Good, yeah, exactly. There you go. So German shows up, this stuff actually shows up in these trace positions right here, which is super, super cool. So you have child language that does this, and also German does this. They leave it in the trace position, which is only predicted through this sort of like movement mechanism. So, right. A little bit more. Let's move this even further because MLC gets us even more than islands. We can go beyond islands to looking at if you compound raising predicates together. These are two raising predicates. Is one that we're really familiar with, but seems is another one that behaves exactly the same. Observe for yourself that these have the same argument structure, right? Who seems? Nobody. Yeah, nobody seems. Nobody is likely. But in fact, Wendy likes Turkish in both of those examples, right? The same argument structure, the agent of like. And so those are both raising predicates. If you combine the two, you can put that expletive there. It seems that Wendy is likely to like Turkish, but you cannot inside. You cannot put it on the inside spec TP position. Wendy seems that it is likely to like Turkish. And for your own good, go through these other explanations that we might have, these other causes of ungrammaticality, and verify that for yourself that none of these are going to explain this. There's no island there. Case is satisfied at the very end. Remember, as structure, case only looks at the very end. Case is satisfied in both of those finite clauses. Have something in spec TP, a DP, EPP is fulfilled. The theta criterion is the same in both of those sentences because you have the same number of DPs. All right, so none of those things are going to explain it, but in fact the MLC is going to be the explanation for why we get a star there in that sentence because Wendy should stop off where that it is and block it insertion. In fact, it does not. And you should not have something like that. You should not have that sentence at all. So, yeah. Finally, the third type of explanation that the MLC gives us. See, we're getting a lot of stuff. And by getting a lot of stuff, I'm saying we're describing a lot of birds, right? Using just the idea of MLC. We're explaining a lot of other things where we just had to say, this is how it is. And we can just say, no, it's because of MLC. It's all because of this one thing. So in the book, they talk about French, and you can discuss the French examples amongst yourselves. But this one I want to talk about. This one I really, really want to talk about because this was supposedly, this is familiar, right? Okay. So yeah, as a holistic question, this language has rich agreement. Therefore, it has, V to T movement, right? V to T movement. Therefore, which of these sentences is grammatical? Yeah. Seriously. A is, yeah. What's one of the tests for V to C movement? Just you have to just look at word order. You don't have to go into the tree even. I mean, you can. It's that appears to the left of negation. So if a verb appears to the left of negation, assuming that it's like English, then there's V to T movement. A exhibits V to T movement, and also C, which is where you guys gave me a lot of headache, to be honest, because technically, yes. And I feel bad because we didn't explicitly say it before, but C is not the one that I wanted to get because of the MLC. We'll see this. And I never said it before, but this is actually how it works. In that the idea of picking the closest one to move, right? The idea of picking the closest one to move comes up here, where you're going to have the neg. When we have the neg phrase, and then the VP, excuse my abbreviated, trees, where you're going to have the cow not has stood. These are all auxiliaries. These are going to be V's, not T's. And T says, hey, you need to move something here because I'm a rich language and I want you to fill this position, right? So the cow has not stood in the room is A, and that's what we predict should be fine. But some of you really had me shaking my fist because you moved this one for some reason. You said, all right, well, he said that if you have rich agreement, then you have V to T movement, and that's a V, and that moved to T. Okay, yeah, it's true. And in fact, the only examples that we did about rich agreement and V to T movements, or the ones that we focused on, were with main verbs. So that's why I gave you the point for C. But why does this? Why is this not a good configuration? Why is this not good?
The MLC and locality.
Yeah. So how does the explanation follow here?
That T looks down and sees has first, and so it has. Is
Yeah.
moved.
We want to move this thing to the. We want to keep these movements as short as possible.
Right.
Yeah. We want to keep these movements as short as possible. This thing has the closest relationship to this. This is the closest possible landing site for a V to T movement. We want to just do any V to T movement in the tree. This one is the closest possible relationship between V and T. This one requires us to go a little bit further, so we're not achieving the MLC by saying, hey, look for this further one.
Question.
Go down the tree. Yeah, John.
We've seen that we've got some languages that have ox-only movement. and
Yeah.
Some that have both ox and main. Are there any that just move main and wouldn't move ox?
Ooh. Do we see any German examples like that?
I mean, no, not really. Because when there are two verbs in the auxiliary, like haben is used for the past tense, it always is first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you even did like the more normally only used written form, that's just one verb anyway. There's no ox, so
Right.
I don't think there's anything like that in German.
I can't think of any, and I would be really suspicious of it, and in fact, I would predict that there should not be because of this.
Mhm.
Yeah, you would not predict things further away, And that I'm saying that as a universal in all languages. You would not expect the thing further away.
Well, I was thinking more like a language that if you have an auxiliary verb, it still appears second in the sentence. Like a language that would say, I not stood has, or something like that, you know? Because then in that case, stood would be the first verb in, syntactically. Well, I guess the D structure would still create the auxiliary first, but. Yeah, I was just trying to think more of a language that even if you had auxiliary verbs, they appeared second to the main verb. You know?
Right.
But I don't think,
Well, I have to think about that. Yeah, we'll have to think about that because that would be a weird formulation indeed.
I had a question about the German case where it said we have the ver
We're almost
twice.
So yeah. Yeah.
So basically, when we're thinking about like the on-off switch, in
Yeah.
that case, because I feel like MLC is saying you have to get to the nearest available thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, and I think in this, think about that in English, MLC and WH islands work together, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to go to the nearest thing. Okay, that's the nearest thing, but now it's an island, so the next nearest thing can't move. But it seems like in German, it's like it's still pertaining to MLC because the first bear is moving.
Mhm.
Now you've created WH island, but maybe German doesn't care about WH islands, and then the next there where it's able to move all the way to the left, or
It's not the.
or the dare, not yeah, but
Wait, but it's not the next one. It's the same thing in both of those sentences. Sorry, both of the vers are the same word.
yeah.
They're just spread out like putty. Do you want to look at the sentence again?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
only
yeah.
one example of what in that sentence.
I thought there was-
I mean, no, there are.
Very
Yeah,
glad to
there-
do enough.
there are two visual appearances of who, but in fact, what are you asking? How many variables are there in that sentence?
Ver is base generated by Hals,
Mhm.
right? At the very beginning, and then it moves twice, but
So
instead
like
of leaving
you
a
create a
trace,
copy of it?
yeah, instead of leaving a trace, it leaves itself.
I mean, I'm asking you, yeah, this sentence, so you know German, how
Yeah.
many variables are in this sentence? Who are you
Yeah,
asking?
you're
Are you asking
you're
about two
one
people?
person,
You're
yeah.
asking about one person.
Who do you think
It's the same thing.
went home?
And this is the copy theory of movement. Robert, you're pushing all my buttons. I swear to God. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I didn't mean
is
to.
the
I was a little confused. I'm like, wait,
No, I
this seems
swear-
like there are two, but you're right. It is just talking about one guy. So
Yeah, so we didn't talk about actually the derivation of this sentence, and in fact, we don't have the technology, we will not, how to describe something like this. But as long as you understand that this is the same who, it's just that now we're going to talk about parameters for a second. In English, we can do this movement, it's just that every time you move it, in English, you leave a trace. The German setting is that in German, apparently, only the first one leaves a trace, and everywhere else you leave a ghost. Actually, pronunciation. And so this is the German setting, and this is the English one. And that's how traces work, that traces can have parameters. And in fact, to bring this home to English a little bit more, there's a thing called resumptive pronouns. Resumptive pronouns, where this becomes a problem. Because in English, you can actually pronounce traces. You can do this in English. This is the book. Now we know how to do this, relative clauses. The book that I saw him read it yesterday. Is this okay? Is this grammatical?
that doesn't seem right.
Can you, I know like as a white coat syntactician you're going to say, oh, that's not good. But can you imagine someone saying that on the bus? Yeah. Just, I don't know why I'm on the bus, but.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those like stutter English, like you kind of got one thought and then you forget and you kind of start a new one, like this is the book that I saw him read it yesterday.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds like that kind of thing. It's not like you would say in one fluent sentence. This is the book that I saw him read it yesterday.
Right.
Because when you say it like that, I don't think anyone would utter that. I think if you have that small pause, like this is the book that I saw him read it yesterday.
Right.
You know.
Let me try this. Let me try this experiment on you guys. So this is
Oh, yeah.
what do you mean? Yeah.
Wait, in that case, I feel like you wouldn't have that. This
Yeah.
is the book. I saw him read it yesterday.
No, I mean no. You don't have to do exceptional. This is the book that I saw him read it yesterday. Can you imagine in the universe someone saying like that? This is the chair that I saw him sat in it yesterday. Try this one. So this is the guy. It's been a while since I've done this. This is the guy with black hair. This is the guy with black hair. Who is this guy?
Black hair.
This is the guy with red hair. Who is this guy? John knows him. Who is this guy?
Him.
That guy.
The guy with no hair?
This is the guy with red hair. This is the guy with black hair. John knows him. Who is this guy? The guy John knows. Okay. Yeah, you guys are too aware. Because some people will put in the presumptive there and then leave the room. Because some people will say that. So this is the guy that John knows.
The guy John knows him?
Mhm. Yeah.
Some people, yeah.
You guys. Yeah, these are good. Okay, I'm gonna exert executive order. Yes. But anyways, the point is that you know that these exist, and this would be our analysis of it 30 seconds ago. This is the book that I saw him read, and this trace would be left by what?
The book. I saw him read the book yesterday. the base
Sure, the
generation.
idea, but actually what was our analysis of these relative clocks?
Oh, I guess actually
Remember that?
now I'm confused.
Yeah, we would have that.
Some kind of operator.
We would have that operator thing.
Yeah.
Because this has to be separate. Yeah. So this is the book that I saw him read yesterday. We would leave a trace there because this is actually the book, right? And then move that thing elsewhere. And so in English, that would be a trace. But sometimes you can rescue this by saying the resumptive there. You can pronounce the trace. This is the book that I saw him reading. And this lends credence to the copy theory of movement, that you're leaving copies everywhere, not traces. So that's something that's a little far out there, but know what resumptive pronouns are. I'll make a slide on that. But I want you to know this, because this is a good grammar thing. This is far out, but fine. Let me finish this. I'm sorry. No. Blame that guy, because I need to finish this slide right here. Heads, blockheads. Okay, a note. I'm going to hold you for 3 minutes. I'm sorry if you got to take a bus. Then all the slides will be up. But we've noticed that heads block heads in head movement, and XPs block XPs, phrases block phrases. And this idea was put forth by Luigi Rizzi, 1990, in his book called Relativized Minimality. So he's not a person you need to know, but just so that you've heard that name. So, okay. And finally, echo questions. I need to mention 2 slides about this. In English, so we've talked about WH movement all in the last 3-4 days. We spent 4 days on this chapter. WH questions always have to move, not. In fact, you can say this, right? You can say this in a pragmatically marked sentence. You can say, Jordan paints what, right? Yeah, you don't know what it is that Jordan paints. And these are called echo questions. So these are called echo questions, and they are a special type of question that is only in a certain conversational context, right? And what we note about this, the important concept for here is that things stay in place, which in Latin is called in situ. So we have to use the Latin because whatever. So we call this a WH in situ question. You do need to know in situ and what actual questions are. And we're just going to say that those WH question words stay in the base generated position. The explanation that Carney gives in the book is that these are not WH questions, in fact, and the WH phrases are minus WH. So do with that what you will. I won't ask you to tree these, but keep that analysis in mind, that the WH phrases are minus WH in echo questions. And the important thing for us to look at, especially with regards to next chapter, so we'll be spending a lot of time on WH and C2 questions, is that in English, it's super weird. It's pragmatically marked. You can only say it after someone has said it in the conversation. You can say, Jordan likes to paint, Jordan likes to paint what? And then, so you can't just say it out of the blue. So it's marked. However, this is the normal way to ask WH questions in Japanese and Chinese. These East Asian languages allow you to have WH and C2 questions. So we have to ask, and those are normal WH questions. What is it that you ate yesterday? What is it that Jordan painted? We have to ask, are those things plus WH? What does that mean then if they don't move? Are you going to have plus WH phrase and then a minus WHC? That doesn't make any sense. How did those things get checked, right? There's problems there. So we're going to have a lot of fun looking at non-English in the next chapter and hopefully get on to unifying some things. So, all right. That's it for today. Thanks for this homework here. You have a quiz due tomorrow. And I'm going to put up, before dinner time, the next homework, which is on Friday. So,
And then the slides from last Friday, are they
were they not up yet? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Let me know. Yeah, okay, sorry about that.
No
Yeah.
worries, I
Okay.
just thought maybe you remembered today or something.
Oh, you're too generous. Yeah, be on my toes about that. Sorry. So.
I just assumed you didn't like us.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do any of this. I don't want to do any of this stuff.
There.
Yeah.
I assumed you thought we were gonna steal it, write on paper about it.
No.
Seriously, right, worry about it.
No, I don't know. That's been like face off in such a long time.
I'm glad I waited not to do, I read ahead, but I was still kind of confused about the WH, where the NLC part.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I waited to hear.
Oh, see? Okay, did that help? Okay,
Yeah, it
thanks.
helped a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah. There's a lot more into this because I feel, he spends like 3 pages on this sort of stuff and we really need to sit on it for 30 minutes. Like, you see why, like, there's a lot. So, that's why we have to talk it out, So,
Thank you.
good, yeah. Did I get your write-up here?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
in the pile.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Yeah. Don't forget the quiz. Yeah.
I'm gonna finish that one tonight.
Great.
I've got it locked in my brain.
Got it.